Before we begin, a question. When a volcano erupts, we call it a natural disaster. We name it, measure it, evacuate around it. We do not ask what it wants. We do not consider that it might have a grievance. We simply agree that it is dangerous and we move away from it. The ancient Greeks were more honest than we are. They looked at Mount Etna, at the fire tearing through the earth, at the ground shaking, at the ash that could swallow cities, and they said, something is buried under there, something that lost, something that has not stopped being angry about it. His name is Typhon, and this is what they didn't put into the victory poems. To understand Typhon, you have to understand what the world looked like before Zeus, not the world of marble temples and harvest festivals and heroes with famous names, the world before order, the world when Gaia, the earth itself, not a goddess with a face but something older, something that precedes faces, was still deciding what existence would become. Gaia had children, many of them. The Titans came first, enormous, powerful, the original inheritors of creation. Then the Cyclops, then the 100-handers, creatures so vast and strange that even the Titans feared them. Gaia bore all of it, all of them, out of herself and into the world. And then Zeus came. And everything Gaia had built before him was either absorbed into his new order or destroyed. The Titans were defeated in the Titanomachy, 10 years of war that shook the cosmos, and cast into Tartarus, not killed, imprisoned, buried in the deepest dark beneath the world, sealed away so the new king could reign without the inconvenience of everything that came before him. Gaia watched all of it, and Gaia remembered. What happens when a mother watches her children imprisoned by the grandson she helped put in power? She builds something that cannot be imprisoned. Typhon was born from Gaia and Tartarus, earth and abyss, the oldest forces in existence, combining in grief and fury to produce the last weapon the old world would ever make. He was not born small. He was not born gentle. He rose from the earth already enormous, already burning, already everything Zeus had spent a decade consolidating power specifically to prevent. 100 serpent heads where other beings had one, eyes that blazed fire, a voice that could mimic every creature that had ever lived, bulls, lions, humans, things without names, from the waist down, coiled serpents instead of legs, rooted to the earth that made him. He rose higher than the mountains. He scraped the stars. He was not a monster in the way we use the word, as shorthand for something we've decided has no inner life without considering. He was a force, specifically the force of everything Zeus's new order required to be suppressed. When Typhon came for Olympus, the gods ran. This detail does not appear prominently in the official mythology. It should. Every god on Olympus, Zeus included, in some accounts, fled. They ran to Egypt, some versions say, disguised themselves as animals to escape. The king of the gods and his entire divine court, scattered by a single being who had decided that enough was enough. Let that settle. These were gods who had defeated the Titans, the gods who had divided the cosmos between them, claimed dominion over sea and sky and underworld, the gods who demanded temples and sacrifice and worship from every mortal civilization in the known world. They ran. What does it mean that the thing they ran from was born specifically because of what they had done? Typhon was not an accident of creation. He was not chaos erupting randomly from the void. He was the direct consequence of Zeus's victory. The grief of a mother, the fury of the dispossessed, given a body large enough to hold all of it. Zeus came back. That much is true, and it deserves acknowledgement. Whatever else he has, and he does have many things, not all of them admirable, Zeus returned when his court had fled. He faced Typhon alone on the battlefield, and what followed was the last true contest for the cosmos. Not a war of armies, one king against the last defender of everything his kingdom had replaced. The battle was cataclysmic. Mountains were thrown, the sea boiled, the earth shook so violently that the underworld itself trembled, and the dead grew afraid. For a time, and this too is recorded, though quietly, Typhon won. He overpowered Zeus, took his thunderbolts, took something even more intimate than that, his sinews, left Zeus temporarily helpless on the earth he claimed to rule. In the end, Zeus recovered. In the end, the thunderbolts found their mark. In the end, Typhon fell. But it was closer than the victory poems suggest. Zeus did not kill Typhon. He couldn't, or wouldn't. The accounts vary, and the distinction matters more than it might seem. Instead, Typhon was buried, Mount Etna placed above him like a lid on something too dangerous to open, entombed in the earth that made him, sealed beneath a mountain that has been erupting for 3,000 years. We call those eruptions geological events. We measure the lava flow, track the ash clouds, issue evacuation notices. We have explanations for it all. Tectonic plates, magma chambers, pressure release. The ancient Greeks had a different explanation. They said the mountain shakes because what is underneath it has not stopped fighting. Here's what Typhon left behind. Before Zeus buried him, Typhon loved Echidna, herself a creature of the old world, half woman, half serpent, ageless and immortal. Together they had children, and those children became the architecture of every Greek hero's greatest challenge. Cerberus, who guards the dead. The Lernaean Hydra, who Heracles could not simply kill but had to outwit. The Chimera, the Sphinx, the monsters that populate the margins of every myth, that give the heroes something to overcome, that make the stories worth telling. Zeus buried the father, but the children remained. Every time a hero had to face something genuinely terrifying, something that couldn't be defeated by strength alone, they were facing the legacy of the creatures Zeus needed an entire mountain to contain. The old world doesn't disappear just because of the new world winds. It persists in the ground beneath your feet, in the things that still come out at night, in the monsters at the edges of the map. So was Typhon a monster? By Zeus's definition, yes. By the definition of every civilization that built temples to the Olympians and wrote their history in terms the Olympians approved, yes. But Zeus's definition of monster is simply the thing that challenged me and lost. The Titans challenged him and lost. They became cautionary tales. The giants challenged him and lost. They became proof of his power. Typhon challenged him and lost. He became the explanation for why volcanoes exist. A defeated enemy repurposed as a geological footnote. What the official version cannot quite contain is the question underneath it. What was the world losing when it lost Typhon? Not the fire, not the 100 heads, not the capacity for destruction, but the thing he represented. The last serious argument that Zeus's order was not inevitable. The last voice, however violent, that said, what came before you also mattered. Zeus answered that argument with thunderbolts, and then buried it under a mountain so it could never be made again. 3,000 years later, Etna is still erupting. You can draw your own conclusions. History is written by the gods who win. Typhon was the last thing Zeus was ever truly afraid of, not because of the fire, or the 100 heads, or the strength that almost took the thunderbolts from his hands, because Typhon was the proof that Zeus's power had a cost. that the world before him was real and had value and had to be violently suppressed rather than naturally replaced. That somewhere under the official story of divine order and cosmic justice, something is still burning. The mountain shakes, and somewhere beneath it, the last defender of the old world has not yet finished making his argument.